Nick, welcome. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, Charles. How are you?
Great, thank you. So I thought it'd be interesting for those who maybe haven't interacted with Hibu recently, or looked at what you're doing recently, kind of sort of the very, very brief version of Hibu's journey from its legacy, which was Yellow Book and Yell, that sort of those heritage Yellow Pages organizations, into what it is today. And maybe rather than put words in your mouth, you can tell me what words you use to describe Hibu as a business today.
I'd say today we would best be seen as a full service digital marketing agency for small businesses. So we focus on delivering a complete suite of digital marketing capabilities to mostly businesses in the services sector. So we service primarily what I'll call home services and professional services. The doctors, lawyers, other sorts of medical, auto service, things like that. We service some retail as well, but primarily focused on the services side of it. And so really our mantra is to try to help those customers build their business and get in leads and new business and keep and retain those customers.
You mentioned leads right there, and that's always an interesting discussion of, are you in the business of generating leads, or are you in the business of providing tools?
I don't think it's a black and white thing for sure. But fundamentally, yeah, we're in the business of trying to bring new business to our clients. And the tools are a means to that end, right? So we look at, how is consumer behavior changing? What are consumers doing to discover and engage with businesses? And how can we provide the kinds of tools, services, advertising technology, et cetera, that helps our customers adapt their business and their acquisition of customers to that changing consumer behavior.
So, you mentioned this consumer behavior changes. I think we've all sort of have an idea what you mean by that, but kind of walk through what you would say are the handful of consumer behavioral changes that are driving your product decisions today.
Sure. Yeah. I think I would largely describe it as fragmentation. Mm-hmm. So if you look back a few years ago, consumers found a business by doing a search on Google, and they engage with that business through their website. Fast forward to today, and they discover businesses on Facebook, on Google, on a whole variety of other kind of local search engines. They engage with those businesses on their website, on their GMB page, their Google My Business page, not to use too many acronyms here, their Facebook page, other consumer presences, and the ways that they engage have evolved as well. It's moved on from, most of my engagement is via a phone call to now people are calling a business, texting a business, messaging a business, all sorts, filling out a form on their website, emailing the business. So it's really been, I think, a fragmentation of the way that consumers are, again, discovering and engaging with businesses and how businesses need to turn them into leads. Mm-hmm. And that's complicated the world a lot for the local business owner who, didn't even start out at the beginning of that when it was easy being an expert in running a search campaign or building a website. Now that's exploded. Now they have to be present on a number of different, different properties or surfaces. And they have to be able to, run effective campaigns across a whole bunch of different channels.
So kind of map that observation about consumer behavior to what your both your product stack is and also your service model approach.
Yeah. So in terms of the product stack, again, if you went back, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, almost all of our business was, building a website for a small business and running a search campaign for them. Fast forward to today, being a digital presence is not just about a website. It's also about having a great Facebook page, having a great GMB page, having rich and complete content on all those places, distributing your content out across the web so that all the other local search engines that individually may be small but collectively are large have the right information about you. And then on the advertising side, or what we call the performance side of our business, it's no longer just about running a search campaign, but now also being present in apps, in-app advertising and mobile advertising, mm-hmm. online advertising, social advertising. So again, multiple channels that are important collectively to bringing the right bringing the right activity into that business. And on top of that, I'd say it's also about the balance between paid and organic activity, right? So again, you go back 5-6 years ago, you'd look at your search campaign and say, am I driving the right cost per lead or cost per call for the search campaign? And you'd pretty much ignore all of the peripheral organic activity that might be happening. People who come in now and see an ad, click and do a search for that business name, find themselves on the GMB page for that business and end up engaging organically through that GMB page. So trying to capture all of that activity out there, drive all that activity out there, and really provide a more complete, holistic marketing solution for the business.
And I noticed on your website, you kind of have, I forgot the wording because it's not right in front of me right now, but you talk about, that we're not DIY. So talk about why you make a statement that you're not DIY.
Yeah, so the way we describe the segment that we go after or we support is do it for me. So DIFM is probably the term you saw on our website. And that's really a conscious choice. I mean, we believe there are a large number of small business owners out there who are not and frankly don't want to be digital marketing experts. There are lots of companies out there where the owner is savvy and wants to go and run their own Facebook campaign, build their own website, whatever. There are plenty of great SaaS tools out there for doing that. That is not typically our customer. Our customer is the one who wants to run their business, spend their time doing whatever they're expert in doing, whether that's cleaning teeth or installing hot water heaters. They want to do what they're good at, and they want to hire somebody else to do what we're good at. And so that's the niche or the segment that we go after and support. And that does have a lot of implications for, you mentioned the service model before, how we service those customers. So I'd say our bread and butter is being able to take all these different diverse components or elements of a digital marketing program, onboard a customer, understand their needs, and then tailor a complete solution to them that pulls in all those different components. And most importantly, keeps them all synchronized, right? So you can go out and do 5 different ad campaigns with different companies and have the result of that be mediocre because you're not putting the same message out there. So bringing those all under one umbrella, putting them in one service model lets us keep all of them synchronized as well.
Everything inevitably comes back to the current environment we're in right now. So, but it seems quite relevant for a product person to talk about how this may have altered or accelerated or disrupted your product roadmap. Sort of what's this year been like for the product guy at Hibu?
Interesting, I guess is the best way to say it, right? So, I mean, I don't, from my perspective, it hasn't fundamentally changed the trends that were already out there in terms of how consumers are behaving, how they're interacting with businesses. It's probably accelerated some things. Certainly, the whole idea of no touch delivery of services has impacted the features that people want in their website, the ability to pay online, the ability to do online video consultations instead of having come into your house and do an estimate for you. Those things have certainly accelerated. But again, I don't think it's been a fundamental shift in long-term behavior. I think that shift has been there. It's just really been accelerated.
So let's switch gears to pricing philosophy. Just sort of level set us where you are, what your approach to pricing is.
I would say, I mean, largely it's really trying to tune what we're offering to the marketing need and the budget that a customer has available. So if we're working with somebody who has a $1,000 a month budget or a $10,000 a month budget, it's figuring out the right mix of capabilities that are going to deliver the best value for them for that dollar. So we're not starting from the bottom up and saying, we'd like to sell you this, $99.99 widget, and wouldn't you like to buy 10 of them? We're starting from the standpoint of, what is your need as a business owner? What kind of budget do you have to work with? And how can we map the right solution onto that combines those things I talked about before, having the right digital presence, having the right mix of advertising out there, marketing out there to drive leads into your business. And so that's really a lot of what we're doing is taking the pieces and putting them together in the right way in what we call a solution to, as best we can, meet the needs of the business within what they can afford to invest in their marketing. So
is this sort of invest more in the sales cycle with the idea that the sale is a better sale.
I think that's fair to say. I mean, I think selling a fixed price SaaS product is in some ways easier. Not, I mean, it has its challenges, but from a pricing point of view and the amount of time you need to spend with a customer on it, it's simpler. So we go through a lot of needs assessment. We do a lot of data mining of our own. We've been running hundreds of thousands of campaigns for years for small businesses. So we've got a lot of data in-house on what works and what doesn't work, what combinations of things are going to drive the right kind of results. So it's packaging up that data and bringing that back and arming our salespeople and our onboarding specialists with that data to help the client figure out what the right mix is for their business.
The number that a lot of companies, especially SaaS companies, but are always trying to drive at is that customer acquisition cost, driving that as low as possible. And is your philosophy that that is not necessarily the most important metric?
I mean, it is an important metric for sure. Anybody who's in this business thinks it.
Of course.
I think we're looking at the relationship between that number and the value that we can bring with that client. Again, because we're not selling a fixed price thing.
Right.
It's not a matter of just driving down the customer acquisition cost because the revenue is fixed, right? The revenue is variable as well because we're tuning the solution to each individual client.
Okay. I always want to ask what's next. That's always fraught because people often don't want to disclose what's next. But maybe I can ask it this way. What are you looking at now that you think is going to influence your product decisions in the near future?
I think the interesting thing that we're seeing, and I alluded to it a little bit before around paid versus organic. I think the interesting thing we're seeing is that we're now able to try to understand that consumer behavior and understand, even though we can't, like anybody else, we can't do perfect attribution from of acquisition of clients for a small business owner. We can look at the aggregate data and we can see the kind of behavior that we're generating and the result that that's leading to in an organic sense as well as a paid sense. So we're no longer looking at, gee, if you run a social campaign on Facebook and Instagram, that's going to get you this many clicks to your website and this many conversions on your website. We're also looking at the kind of side effects of that campaign in things like if somebody sees an ad on Facebook, often they go and do a search for that business and they end up engaging with that business through a completely different path, right? So it's that kind of aggregate, more holistic view of things. And that's leading us to kind of rethink the way that we mix the marketing solution for our customers, what's going to drive them the most value. And it's really leading us to around trying to capture more of that organic data and try to provide a more holistic view of the total marketing result that we're driving for the customer. So that's really a lot of what's driving our thinking and our product roadmap and how we're packaging products together and how we're communicating results back to a client in a much more transparent and holistic way rather than siloed. Here's what your search campaign's doing, here's what your website's doing, here's what your display campaign or social campaign's doing. It's really looking at the big picture and the interplay between all these different components.
I mean, everything you've described does not describe a business that has sort of that freemium fill the funnel model. But I'm wondering what you think of that, both the sort of the freemium and that sort of product-led growth model. Have you evaluated that? Does that fit in with the way you do things in any way? And kind of, what do you see as the pros and cons of that way of acquiring customers?
Yeah, we certainly looked at that along the way. We've dabbled in it ourselves. I would say right now our thinking is it doesn't fit terribly well with the way that we do business. And I think a lot of that has to do, again, with the selling a fixed price SaaS product versus selling a more complex and more tailored marketing solution. And I think the freemium model is incredibly powerful when you're trying to, scatter a lot of, get a lot of people started with your product and knowing that 10% of them or 20% of them are going to convert into a paying customer. And the upfront cost of servicing that freemium client is very low relative to the value that you get from the 10, 20, whatever percent convert, right? Mm-hmm. With a marketing solution like we offer, that's not really the case. The upfront cost to get somebody up and running on a pretty complex set of services is fairly high. So we really want to bring somebody in who we know is going to continue to do business with us because we know that they're going to get value out of our services. And so we've gotten pretty good at identifying who is a good a good prospect for us, who's most likely to have the wherewithal and the desire to invest in their marketing over time, stick as a customer, is going to get good results from the kind of things that we're delivering to them, and therefore is going to retain well as a customer. And that's not really a freemium sort of model.
Okay, so I guess the other thing I wanted to clarify is sort of what your build buy equation is for your product mix. Is it mostly partner, or is it some internally developed?
Yeah.
What is the mix there?
There's certainly some internally developed, but most of what we develop internally is all the pieces to tie together, our partners' technology. So, what we try to do is to go out and find great marketing technology and plug it into our systems, so that one, we can deliver it at scale, cost effectively, and we can integrate it with the rest of the solutions we're offering, so we can provide a kind of, again, a holistic view of it. And the hope is that we're finding things that when we bring them in, they may, as a standalone, have a value of 1, and when we plug them in and integrate them with the rest of our solution, their value is now 1.2 or 1.5 or 2 or whatever number you want to put on it, right? Where they have the sum of what is the term?
The whole is greater.
The whole is greater than the sum of the parts, right? Yeah. There you
go. All right, great. That's probably a pretty good note to end on. Thank you very much, Nick. It was nice to chat, nice to catch up. And
likewise, hopefully we can actually catch up in person again someday.